The alien ship hung above Earth like a black moon, silent and cold. Inside its crystal hall, a young human named Eli stood on a raised platform, trying not to shake. His suit was too tight, his gloves too stiff, and every breath felt heavy around him. Alien nobles watched with bright golden eyes and thin, calm faces. Their pale skin looked smooth at first, but in the sharp light, Eli saw faint lines like sleeping scales. Their long coats whispered against the crystal floor when they moved, like soft wings. Human soldiers waited near the doors, rifles across their chests, helmets hiding their eyes. They called this day a wedding, they called it peace, but the air felt like the start of a battle. At the front of the hall, a human general and an alien priest stood side by side. The general's dark blue uniform was covered in medals, each one a memory of some old fight. The priest wore long red robes that moved like slow fire around his feet. "Today," the general said, his voice echoing in the hall, "we end open war between humanity and the Ashen Court." Eli heard the word open and his stomach twisted. If open war was ending, some other kind of war was still hiding somewhere. The alien priest lifted his hands, his voice low and smooth in his own language. A small device repeated his words in flat human speech. He spoke about unity, duty, sacrifice, and a living bridge between their peoples. He called the marriage a shield. He called Eli that shield. To Eli, the words felt less like honor and more like chains. He kept his eyes low and tried not to think about how small he really was. A slow drumbeat rolled through the hall, deep and steady. The tall crystal doors at the back slid open without a sound. Everyone turned to watch. The bride walked in, calm and steady, each step echoing in the hall. Kalara, daughter of the Ashen Court, the alien girl he was ordered to marry. At first glance she almost looked human. Her hair was long and black, her face calm, her silver dress shining in the light, but faint scales glowed at her throat and along her temples. Her eyes were deep amber, too bright, too sharp. Every time her heel touched the floor, Eli felt a small tremor under his boots. She was heavier than she looked, stronger than she looked, something more than human. He tried to stand tall as she came closer, even though his knees felt weak. He had grown up in a broken city under alien patrol ships. He had watched news screens show burning colonies and lost battles. He had been told this marriage was his duty, that it would protect Earth. No one had really asked what he wanted. He thought of his little sister Lila, still down there on the surface. He remembered her red eyes on the day soldiers came to take him. He had promised her he would survive, that he would come back. Now, under the gaze of dragons in human skin, that promise felt fragile. Kalara stopped in front of him, close enough for him to see tiny cracks of light in her glowing eyes. For a long moment they only stared at each other. Her gaze was steady, cold, and searching, as if she could see every fear inside him. He saw no hatred there, but he did not see kindness either. To her, he felt like a task, a piece on a board, not a person. "Join hands," the priest said, his voice calm. Eli raised his hand, trying to keep it from shaking. Kalara's hand closed around his, hot and dry and very strong. The touch hit him like a wave. For one heartbeat, he was no longer in the hall. Red skies burned above jagged black mountains. Giant winged shapes roared through smoke, shadows falling over dying cities. He saw humans in rough armor charging through walls of fire, their faces bloody, their voices hoarse, but their eyes still full of stubborn light. He smelled smoke and metal and ash. Fear rose in his chest like a storm. Then the vision snapped. He was back on the platform, gasping for air. He almost pulled his hand away, but Kalara's grip tightened, firm but not cruel. "Breathe, human," she whispered, so softly only he could hear. "You are not dying." Her voice was low and strange, almost gentle. Eli forced air into his lungs, feeling his heart slow little by little. The priest continued speaking as if nothing had happened. No one else seemed surprised. Eli wondered if anyone else had felt that vision, or if it was something only he was meant to see. Now that his eyes were open, he noticed other details in the hall. Deep claw marks cut into the base of one crystal pillar, half hidden by a hanging banner. Thin lines of blue light crawled across the ceiling, part of a nearly invisible shield system. A low, steady rumble rose from beneath the floor, like a giant engine or a sleeping beast. For a day of peace, everything around him looked ready for war. The general spoke of trust and alliance. The priest spoke of flame and blood. Eli thought of Layla on the cracked rooftop. The next blast hit the alien ship like a giant fist. Crystal beams groaned, and dust drifted from the high ceiling. Red warnings flashed along the walls, painting the hall in blood. Eli grabbed the edge of the platform as the floor jumped. Alien nobles turned toward the noise, golden eyes suddenly narrow and sharp. The peaceful wedding hall now felt like a glass prison. Outer ring damaged, a flat voice said from hidden speakers. Unidentified human craft have broken the blockade. Human craft. Eli thought, his mouth going dry. He looked at the human general for answers. The man did not look surprised. He looked ready. It was the face of someone whose plan started. A third impact rolled through the ship like distant thunder. Eli slipped on smooth crystal and stumbled toward the edge. A strong hand shot out and caught his arm. Kelara pulled him behind her with frightening ease. For a brief moment he felt the heat of her body. He looked up and froze at the change in her eyes. They were no longer soft amber, they glowed molten gold. Pupils thin black slits. "Stay behind me," she said in a low voice. It felt like a command from something ancient, not a request. Around them, nobles began to drop their gentle masks. Faint scales rippled over skin, fingers stretching into clawed hands. Coats split to reveal dark armor underneath. Several nobles showed rows of sharp white teeth. At the doors, human soldiers raised rifles and shouted into headsets. No one listened to the priest or the promises of peace. The alien priest still tried to hold control. "Remain where you are," he called. "This ceremony is protected." A black shape smashed through the far wall mid-sentence. Crystal exploded inward like a storm of knives. A dark human dropship shoved itself into the hall. Engines howling, side panels opened, and thick lines dropped to the floor. Figures in black armor slid down and landed in crouches. They moved as one, rifles sweeping over every target. Human strike team, Eli thought, stunned. One soldier pointed straight at him, visor flashing green. "Visual on the asset," the voice shouted. Harsh and clear. "Secure the groom, priority 1. Asset," the word echoed inside Eli's skull. Not husband, not envoy, not hero. A tool, something to grab and spend. He tasted metal on his tongue like blood. Without speaking, Kelara stepped in front of him. Her arm pressed him down the steps of the platform. "Stay low," she murmured, eyes locked on the soldiers. Heat rolled from her skin like air above a forge. A nearby noble spread his arms, scales pouring across his face. "Human borders," he snarled. "They defile sacred law." A faint light of fire flickered between his teeth. The human general only barked short commands into his wristcom. Eli crouched behind Kelara, thoughts racing faster than his pulse. The general was not shocked. The soldiers knew his name. The wedding was a stage, and he was bait. They had never meant this day to be peaceful. One armored soldier stepped forward, boots ringing on crystal. His helmet slid back with a hiss of air. A scarred, tired human face stared at Kelara. Then at Eli. "Eli Ward," he called. "We are here to extract you." He lifted his rifle toward Kelara. Barrel humming. "Step away from the alien," he ordered. Voice like stone, every eye in the hall fixed on her. Nobles watched with rage, soldiers with hard suspicion. Kelara did not move. Her lips pulled back enough to show 2 sharp teeth. Before he could think, Eli heard himself speak. "She is my wife," he said, his voice shaking. The words shocked him but felt solid, like something he chose. The soldier's jaw clenched. "That thing is a dragon princess of the Ashen Court," he snapped. "She is not your wife. She is your cage." Dragon princess. The title cut through Eli like cold steel. He remembered the vision from her touch, wings and burning cities. Her warmth now felt like standing near the mouth of a volcano. Still, he did not step away from her back. Kelara tilted her head, studying the unmasked soldier. "You attack under our banner of peace," she said. You aim weapons at a royal heir. Her eyes brightened to a painful, burning gold. And you dare to call us monsters, she finished. The soldier did not flinch. We fight monsters with whatever we have, he answered. We do not leave our own in claws. The rifle's glow grew stronger as it charged. The air turned thick and hot, hard to breathe. Ele felt sweat slide down his spine inside the suit. If that weapon fired, the hall would become a pit. The first shot came from neither side. Ele woke to cold air and the quiet hum of machines. His head throbbed, but he was alive. A flat gray ceiling looked back, broken only by thin white lights and vents. No alien crystal, no banners, no staring golden eyes. The walls of the small room were bare metal with one door and a narrow screen. A black star on a steel shield was painted near his bed, human fleet. Relief hit him, followed by a twist of fear. A cold knot of dread settled under his ribs. If humans had him. Someone had planned this long before he said his vows. Straps held his chest and wrists to the bed. He pushed against them and felt measured resistance. "Relax," a voice said. Her hair was cut close to her skull, her face lined and steady. "You are on the cruiser Bastion," she said. "Lunar Fleet, 3rd Shadow Division." Her accent was pure Earth City, hard corners on every word. "What about Kalara?" he asked. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "The Dragon Princess is alive," she said. "She's under containment and heavy guard." Containment, Eli thought. Another part remembered her shielding him from falling stone and fire. The woman touched a panel, and the straps clicked open. His wedding suit was gone. He wore plain dark ship clothes and no shoes. "I am Admiral Sato," the woman said. "You were never told my name, but I have known yours for months." "I never joined the fleet," he said. "Not officially," she replied. She handed him a thin black tablet. Lines of text floated under his picture. Name, Eli Ward. Status, strategic asset. High risk, high value. Approval date, months before he was chosen for a peace marriage. "You planned this," he whispered. "You picked me for them." "We needed someone young and overlooked," Sato said calmly. "Someone the Ashen Court would think they could shape." Her voice never rose. Eli gripped the tablet until his hands shook. "You used me," he said, throat tight. He thought of Lila, watching soldiers lead him away while he promised safety. She nodded toward the door. "Come, you need to see the war you married into." They walked through narrow gray corridors that thrummed with hidden engines. No one saluted him, no one called him hero. Through a small window he saw space. The moon curved below, huge and silent. Dark shapes slid around it like blades. Guns lined their sides, tucked close like folded claws. Eli pressed his palm to the glass. "You hid all this from them?" he asked. "The Dragon saw our surface fleets, not the shadow behind," Sato said. "Every time they burned a city, we built deeper and quieter. We turned our grief into hidden engines and silent guns." They entered a wide operations room heavy with tired people and bright screens. A large display hovered in the center like a frozen window. Sato raised her hand and one recording filled the air. "Watch," she said. A human station appeared under red alert. A massive dragon tore through a bulkhead in a spray of sparks. But not everyone ran. Armored humans rushed toward it. Not away, they climbed its scaled legs, aiming for joints and eyes. One soldier clung to its neck, a dark shape against glowing scales. He shouted something Eli could not hear. White light swallowed both man and beast. Static hissed, then cleared. "That was Kalak Station," Sato said quietly. Another recording replaced it. Smoke-filled tunnels under a burning colony. Walls glowing red from heat. Human fighters crawled through ash, dragging children past pools of lava. "They think we kneel. They think we break." She switched the view again. A star map appeared, dotted with color. Red clusters marked Dragon territory. Blue points showed human worlds still holding on. Thin white lines linked them, pulsing with tiny moving symbols. Tiny blue arrows darted into red space, some vanishing, some returning thicker. He suddenly understood why Sato's eyes looked so old. "So the wedding was just one more knife," he said. "One placed close to their throat," Sato replied. Kaylara is not only a bride, she is a key. Through her channels we read fragments of their council traffic. She opened a new file on the central screen. Alien script filled the air, matched by simple human text. Title: Operation Glass Nest. Target: Human Colony Viridia 3. The sound in the room faded until Eli could hear only his own breath. Viridia 3. The floor seemed to tilt under him. Though the ship did not move, he knew that name like his own heartbeat. His mouth went dry. When? He asked. Sato looked at the red countdown timer at the bottom of the file. Soon, she said, unless we give them a reason to fear you more. Admiral Sato closed the attack file and looked at Eli. Her eyes were calm, but there was no softness in them. You have seen what they planned for Viridia 3, she said. Now you need to face who you married. She turned and walked out of the command room. Eli followed, his legs heavy, his chest tight. The ship's corridors curved like metal veins around them. Boots thudded, voices stayed low. The air smelled of oil and steel. No one stared at him. No one saluted him. He was just another figure moving through a war machine. Only the black star symbols on the walls seemed to watch him. They stopped in front of a thick glass door. 4 guards waited there with heavy rifles across their chests. Their eyes were flat and tired, but alert. Sato pressed her hand to a dark pad beside the door. Metal bolts slid open with a deep grinding noise. This is containment, she said. Not a cell, not a guest room. Eli already knew who was inside. His stomach turned as the door slid open. The chamber was round, all steel and pale white light. In the middle stood a humming energy field like clear glass. Inside the field, Kaylara stood barefoot on the smooth floor. His alien bride, the dragon princess of the Ashen Court. Her silver wedding dress was gone. She wore simple black clothes, nothing rich, nothing royal. Thin rings of light circled her wrists and ankles like glowing chains. Her golden eyes were still bright, still sharp, still dangerous. Those eyes moved to Sato, then to Eli. Human Admiral, she said, her voice smooth and low. You keep your honored guests in beautiful little cages. This is not honor, Sato answered. This is safety. For you, for us, for whatever remains of peace. Eli stepped closer without meaning to. Viridia 3 burned in his mind like a fever. Dusty streets, broken houses, his little sister laughing on a cracked rooftop. He saw the red countdown from the file in front of his eyes. Did you know? He asked, his voice rough. Did you know about Operation Glass Nest, about my world? Kaylara's eyes narrowed, the gold inside them dimmed. Sato lifted her wrist and brought up the file again. Alien symbols floated in the air with human translation beside them. Target, Viridia 3, civilian population. Projected casualties, tactical gain. Cold numbers for a living planet. Eli watched Kaylara's face as she read. For a long moment she said nothing. Her jaw tightened. Her shoulders rose with a deep, slow breath. I knew my father wanted a burning example, she said quietly. I did not know the name of the world he chose. A burning example, Eli repeated. Anger rising like fire. My sister is there. Those numbers are people, not smoke. He stepped close enough that heat from the field brushed his skin. I married into a family that calls that a message. Kaylara did not look away. The Ashen Court believes fear is the only true language, she said. Burn one world, make 10 obey. She sounded like she was repeating an old lesson. But I asked for this marriage for my own reasons, she added. Sato's eyes moved, sharp with interest. You asked, Eli said, shocked. You wanted this. I wanted a hand inside your war, Kaylara answered. If I stood beside a human husband, I could twist commands. I thought I could soften some blows before they fell. Her mouth pulled tight in a bitter half-smile. I did not know my father's hand was already over your home. Eli wanted to hate her completely. That would have been simple and clean. But he remembered her body covering his when the ceiling fell. He remembered the way she dragged him away from fire and stone. Admiral Sato cut through the silence like a blade. Blame will not move that countdown 1 second, she said. We need something we can use. She gestured to the side of the room. A short woman with dark skin and tired eyes stepped forward. Dr. Imani, xenohistorian and code analyst, Sato said. Imani nodded once to Eli, once to Kelara. Your people like to hide songs and prophecies inside war reports, Imani said. Stories wrapped around kill counts. She flicked her slate, and the attack file vanished. New symbols appeared in the air, curling around a dragon and a human shape. Beside them, simple English words scrolled in a soft glow. One dragon soul and one human soul bound by chosen oath. Their joined will ends an ancient war in ash or iron, fire swallowed or fire shared, chain broken or chain reforged forever. Eli stared at the words until they shimmered. They built our wedding on this, didn't they? He said. Sato shook her head slowly. They built their trust on it, she answered. We built a plan on their trust. They cling to old lines when they are afraid, she said. We push where faith makes them blind. Kelara read the prophecy again, slower this time. That verse was kept for my father's circle only, she said. He thought he could shape its ending. She raised her head and met Eli's eyes through the field. Understand clearly, she said, voice low and hard. I was not sent to save you. I was sent to polish your collar for his leash. The words landed inside Eli like falling stones. His hands shook, but his voice did not. I am not a leash, he said. I am not your father's handle on humanity. He stepped even closer to the barrier, staring straight at her. Humans do not wait for destiny to command us, he said. If we hate the future, we build a different one. We write our own story with our hands. For a heartbeat, Kelara's face showed nothing at all. Then something like a spark moved behind her eyes. Imani gave a small, tired smile. Good, the doctor said. Then we can use that stubborn heart. We must stop Glass Nest without turning this secret war into open fire. Sato nodded once. Decision already made. You will both train, she said. As far as this barrier allows, we will teach you what dragons fear. We will teach you what humans fear. Later, Eli stood in a combat ring deep inside the bastion. His arms ached, his throat burned, his legs felt heavy. A drill sergeant circled him. Voice like gravel. Again, the man shouted. Your fear comes after your movement, not before. Eli blocked, dodged, swung. Screens on the wall showed dragons ripping through steel corridors. He forced himself to look. These were the things hunting his world. On the other side of a clear wall, Kelara watched him, her wrists still wrapped in light, her eyes never blinking. When his session ended, the ring lights shifted. Now the tacticians turned to Kelara's barrier. They filled the air with holomaps of stars and ships. Red and blue icons moved and clashed in slow dances. They spoke of flanks and fake retreats, rescue routes and sacrifice lines. Kelara listened more than she spoke. How many of your own do you throw away for one victory? She asked. As few as we can, one officer answered. We count every name. That answer made her frown as she thought. For a brief moment, Eli forgot the barrier between them. They were just two exhausted people staring at the same storm. Two minds trying to save the same small blue world. Then the training lights snapped to deep red. An alarm screamed down the corridor like metal tearing. Bridge to all decks, a voice called over the speakers. Multiple Ashen Court signatures dropping from warp near lunar orbit. Every officer moved at once. Admiral Sato's face turned hard as armor. Kelara went very still, head tilting like she heard a distant roar. They came early, she whispered. My father smells fear. Eli felt the deck tremble beneath his boots. The moon hung below them like a wounded shield, farther still. Viridia 3 waited under a red target in his mind. He looked at Kelara through the red light and humming field. If we are really a bridge, he said softly, this is where we either hold or break and drag both our worlds into the fire. Alarms rang through the bastion like distant metal thunder. Red lights flashed in every corridor, hard on worried faces. Ailey felt the deck shake under his boots as engines roared. Outside, the Ashen Court fleet closed around the moon like teeth. In the command room, officers shouted numbers over glowing screens. On the main display, dragon warships showed as long red shapes. At the center pulsed the largest icon, the Ashen flagship. Admiral Sato stood still in front of the storm of voices. "Bring Eli Ward and Kaylara to tactical," she said calmly. The room moved even faster after those words left her mouth. 2 guards led Eli through tight metal halls that smelled like oil. His heart hammered, but his steps stayed steady and sure. Kaylara waited in tactical under the watch of armed guards. Her glowing wrist rings remained, but no force field held her now. Imani stood near her with a slate clutched in one hand. Star maps floated above the table, spinning in quiet, deadly beauty. Sato pointed at the brightest red shape on the display. "Your father's flagship," she said to Kaylara. "Primary command." Kaylara closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "Yes," she said. "I feel his mind pressing on the dark. He is angry and pleased. A dangerous mix," she added. "He plans to teach you fear and call it order." Eli's fingers curled into fists at his sides. "He will not touch Viridia 3, he whispered. Fiercely, Sato tapped the spinning image of the flagship's front section. Lines of light broke it apart into layers and chambers. A glowing sphere appeared near the center of the nose. "This is the main fire core," she said quietly. "We have never cracked one before it burned us." A weapons officer stepped forward, face thin from sleepless nights. "We built something for that," he said, voice flat with strain. He brought up a new image beside the ship. It looked like a black metal claw on an empty circle. "Prototype siphon gun," he said. "Made to drink dragon fire. If we connect a living dragon to the socket, we can drain their core and blast it back through them." His eyes slid toward Kaylara, then away. Again, the room grew very still, engines humming under the silence. Kaylara lifted her chin, golden eyes going narrow and bright. "You wish to chain me to your machine and hollow me," she said. "You call us monsters, then dream with monster teeth." Another officer answered without shame, voice rough with anger. "One life to save a planet is a cheap price." He sighed. "We might save Viridia 3 and every world after it." Eli stepped between Kaylara and the officers before Sato could speak. "You are not doing that," he said, louder than he meant. All the eyes in the room snapped toward him at once. "She is not your battery," he said, throat tight but firm. "And we are not your dragons either," he went on. "This is the same logic that burns a world as example. We said we were better than them," he finished. "So act like it." The words hung in the air like a thrown knife. Sato watched him for a long measuring moment. Around them, the ship shuddered as guns tested their ranges. "She is still a threat," one officer muttered. "Not backing down. She is my wife," Eli said, shocking even himself. "And your only bridge into that mountain out there," he added. "You want to hurt him, you have to stand close enough to smell his breath." Kaylara made a small, sharp sound that almost was a laugh. "For a leash, you pull harder than my father expected," she said. Then her face hardened again, golden eyes on Sato. "There is another path," she said slowly. "Dragons still honor parley from blood heirs. Even in war, if I request a meeting aboard his ship, he must allow it. He will not want others to see him refuse me." Sato frowned. "Thinking 3 moves ahead as always, and once aboard," Sato said. "You think you can open him?" Kaylara shook her head slightly, scales glittering at her throat. "I think your people can, if you hide inside my shadow," she replied. "Send us in a small shuttle with your tricks in its bones." Imani's eyes lit with sudden tired excitement. "We can lace a shuttle hull with a remote demolition core," she said. "Hide charges along the frame, keyed to our signal. If they accept parley, we fly our trap into their heart. And if they refuse," Sato asked quietly, "then we learn they fear words more than guns," Kaylara answered. Eli stared at the red flagship icon as if it might move. He remembered his sister. The dragon flagship swallowed the human shuttle like a closing mouth. Metal doors sealed behind them, and the engines faded into silence. Eli felt the floor change from human steel to alien crystal. The air grew hotter and tasted faintly of smoke and iron. He stood in the airlock beside Kaylara, armor too light, heart heavy. Faint golden marks still circled her wrists where human restraints had burned. Now only thin lines of living light curled there like quiet fire. Remember, she whispered, eyes on the door. Parley was granted today. Parley never stopped bullets. Eli muttered. But he nodded anyway. Behind them, hidden explosives slept inside the shuttle's hull. Imani's tired warning echoed in his mind like a second heartbeat. Time it right, and we cut their claws. Time it wrong, we vanish. The inner door slid open with a long hiss of hot air. The hangar spread out like a black cathedral of metal and bone. Curved dragon ships hung from the ceiling like sheathed knives. Guards lined the walls, half human, half scaled, watching in hard silence. Armor wrapped their shoulders. Claws rested on rifles and spears. Eyes glowed red, gold, and cold white in the dim light. L.A. felt every stare like a knife laid against his throat. He walked down the ramp with Kaylara, matching her steady pace. She moved like a queen walking into a storm, chin high. His legs wanted to shake, but pride nailed his feet down. At the far end of the hangar a raised platform waited. A tall figure stood upon it, wrapped in heavy black robes. A crown of bone curved above a harsh, ageless face. Eyes like molten gold watched them without warmth or haste. Kaylara's father, the Ashen King, ruler of the Ashen Court. Eli felt that gaze press into him like heat and weight. This was the mind behind Operation Glass Nest. This was the hand hanging above Viridia 3 and Lila. Daughter, the king said, voice deep as falling stone. You returned from the human kennel with a pet at your side. His gaze slid to Eli, sharp and slow as a blade. He smells of fear and burned cities, the king murmured. Eli wanted to look away, but anger pushed the words out. I smell of survival, he said, voice rough but steady. Your people tried to burn us from the sky. We are still here. Maybe your nose is broken. A soft hiss moved through the watching guards like escaping steam. Kaylara's lips twitched, almost forming a smile, then flattened again. The Ashen King tilted his head, studying Eli like a strange tool. You taught him to bare teeth, he said to Kaylara. He learned that alone, she answered quietly. I only pointed him toward the right throat. A low sound rose from the king. Not quite a laugh. Parley has been called, he said, voice carrying easily. Speak. Kaylara stepped half a pace forward. Keeping Eli in her shadow, end Operation Glass Nest, she said, every word clear. Withdraw your claim on the human world Viridia 3. The air seemed to tighten around them like a closing fist. Armor creaked softly as dragons shifted their weight and watched. You forget your blood, the king said, colder now. An example must burn, or lesser packs will test us. If not that world, another, he added with bored cruelty. Eli saw Lila's face in his mind, small and laughing. His hands curled into fists until his nails cut his palms. You don't make examples, he said, stepping up beside Kaylara. You murder children and call it policy. Humans see that clearly, he finished, voice shaking with anger. The king's gaze locked on him, bright and endless and cruel. Little animal, the king murmured, voice suddenly soft. Your kind were born to kneel or burn, yet you crawl between our claws and gnaw at our wounds. The hangar lights dimmed as if his voice drank them. A crushing weight slammed down on Eli's mind like a giant hand. Images crashed through him in a flood of blazing color. Worlds torn open, fleets turning to fire, dragons flying through ruin. In every scene humans were tiny, screaming, and dying in the dark. His knees hit the floor, breath ripped from his chest. Pain flared white behind his eyes like a star exploding. Kaylara stepped closer without touching him, eyes hard and bright. She snapped a harsh phrase in her own language, sharp as glass. The pressure thinned. Enough for Eli to drag in air again. He is under my oath, she said aloud in human speech. Break parley and every clan will whisper you fear one man. Whispers rose among the guards like sparks in dry grass. Honor, oath, weakness, old words moved through scaled throats. The hangar still trembled from distant hits. Eli stood beside Kaylara facing the king. The king leaned forward on his black throne, scales like cooled lava. Last chance, daughter, his deep voice rolled across the hall. Kill the human and Viridia 3 lives. Spare him, and that world burns as my lesson. The words hit Eli like a punch to the chest. Leela's laughing face flashed in his mind for one sharp heartbeat. Kalara's jaw tightened, golden eyes narrow and bright. She remembered Eli on Bastion's training deck, refusing to stay down. Slowly she stepped forward, wings hidden but ready under her skin. "Your offer is poison," she said quietly. "You ask me to break my oath in my own soul. You want me small and afraid like every world you burned." "Fear keeps packs alive," the king rumbled. White teeth gleaming, without fear. They rise against their betters and die screaming. Kalara shook her head once, slow and final. "You are wrong," she said, louder now. "I have seen humans lose everything and still fight on. They frighten you, father, and that is why you want this boy dead." A ripple passed through the guards, unsure and tense. The Ashen King turned his blazing gaze toward Eli. "You stand behind my blood like a shield," he said. Eli's throat felt dry as sand, but he did not look away. "Yes," he answered, voice rough but steady, "and for your people." "For Viridia 3, the king asked. Eli thought of Layla and the families under that fragile sky. "Yes," he said again, louder this time. Kalara's hand brushed his hot and fierce. Together they faced the Dragon King, human and worm by choice. Admiral Sato watched the flagship signal with hard, tired eyes. The secret war was stepping into bright, recorded light. Inside, the Ashen King rose to his full height, shadow falling like night. "Then you leave me one road," he growled. "If fear cannot chain you, I will break you." Fire flared along his arms and neck. Claws dug into crystal. Pressure slammed into Eli's mind like a heavy hand. Kalara stepped closer, shoulder against his, sharing the weight. "Stop pushing," she said through gritted teeth, "or prove your terror to every dragon watching." Whispers sharpened in the hall like knives. If their king broke parley, his own honor cracked. The pressure paused. Trembling between anger and pride, their sharpest weapon was not just fire, but choice and proof. He raised his voice so every guard could hear. "You think this ends with us?" he shouted. "Every second you threaten us, our fleet records you. Every world, human and dragon, will see what you are. You can rule by fear for a while, but once they know you can be resisted, fear will slip. You will never sleep safe again." "Listen to him," she told the hall. "Not just her father. They built hidden fleets under your shadow. They learned your fire and still stood up. Another, and another, until your own court turns away." The Ashen King glared down, trapped between rage and calculation. At last he drew in a long breath, flames easing along his arms. Slowly he sat back in his throne, heavy and thoughtful. "You bend in strange ways," he said, voice low, like metal that should have snapped long ago. He studied Eli and Kalara together, fingers drumming on stone. "Very well," he said at last. "Glass Nest is ended. Viridia 3 is spared this lesson." Eli almost collapsed as the pressure left his bones. Kalara held him steady, fire gentle instead of fierce. The king's gaze remained hard as old rock. "This is only a pause, until someone forgets this day." Eli met his eyes, exhausted but unbroken. "Then we will remind them," he said softly. "We have recordings, witnesses, scars. We will not forget, and we will not hide again." In orbit, Bastion's guns stayed quiet, but her antennas blazed with data. The hidden war stepped into open light. Dragon ships peeled away from the moon like dark leaves. Later, under a bruised but clearing Earth sky, Eli stood with Kalara on a cracked rooftop. Layla watched them with wide, careful eyes. Above, human ships and faint dragon silhouettes moved in wary paths. "Are we safe now?" Layla asked, her voice small. "No," Eli answered, honest and gentle. "But we are not alone and not blind anymore." Kalara looked at the broken city and the stubborn people within it. "These humans will not bow," she said quietly. "They will bargain, fight, and build again and again." Eli took her hand, feeling warm scales and steady strength. "We will, together," he said. Their marriage had begun as a weapon and a chain. Now it was a bridge made by their own choice. Dragon fire and human will, side by side, ready for the next shadow that rose in the stars.